And then I said, well, it's really engagement is kind of like energy enthusiasm. You need that in the classroom. So I changed the title of this, the 3 E's. I just made that up. And nobody's going to come to a talk with that long of a title. So here's the title: Stuff I Do That Might Help in the Classroom. I mean, I've learned, I just telling Don this, I've learned more from other good teachers at K-State, just going to their seminars and little tips than I have from other things. So I may veer off the topic a little bit, but this is just stuff I've taught here since 1992. And so things that I work and don't work is what I'm going to tell you about today. And it might be a little bit of not a smooth flow, but you know, it's what I have. So I'm in the Department of Animal Sciences industry. Am I a veterinarian? No? Yeah, we don't know, do we? Yeah, no. I am not a veterinarian. We are in the College of Ag, Department of Animal Sciences. It's if you go outside the university setting and you say, I'm in the Department of Animal Science industry, and they go, oh, I just took my dog to the vet. But we have a lot of pre-vets come through our department. I'm a reproductive physiologist. That's how I was trained. And I got to be honest with you, this is, it is fun and pretty good stuff to teach. Okay, so my old boss, old department head, used to say something like, well, reproduction's easy to teach, and he's kind of true about that, right? He said, I'd hate to have to teach genetics or something. Then I kind of felt bad because, well, maybe not, I'm not that good a teacher, I just teach something that's fun. Which, okay, I'll take it. I need all the help I can get, all right? So when I start my classes out, I have people raise their hand, and then I just slowly ask them questions. Do you have cows at home? Do you like sheep? Do you like pigs? And hands go down, hands go down. I get to the end of that, and if there's a couple hands still raised, I say, do you want to have kids someday? And usually all the hands go down. There might be one student left, right? And I'll say, okay, and this is the first day of class, I don't know them. I say, okay, so everybody, there's relevance for this class for everybody in here, and there might be 150 kids except for this girl up here who doesn't like kids. So, and people kind of laugh, and so that's a little, but it should be relevant to everybody, and so that's why I think I luck out in having I teach this subject. The promo video that Tucker, I just put this up there because there's a little video, and that was the hardest thing I've done all month. You just turn the computer on, you're talking to the camera. After the 8th take, I just said, that's it, I'm sending him this. It was, and then I realized, boy, my confidence, maybe you're not that good of a teacher. You can't even communicate for 45 seconds without doing it 8 times. But to be honest, I'm not trained as a teacher, right? We're trained in research, and I want to go over that a little bit. So for young people in here, depending what you're doing, I think a lot of people in this room are into teaching, and that's part of their passion. And I didn't really know that was my passion until pretty much I got to K-State. You know, I thought I was going to be a researcher, and I found out my passion was a little bit different. So and I realized, because of Tucker's title for my seminar, I had used this, which I tried to come up with sort of these rhythmic things, and this never really worked out. But for my spotlight talk, it was energy, enthusiasm, backed by competence, add some application, students see relevance, okay? And so it never really worked out because it's just wordy. But if I am convinced of this, if students see relevance for what they're learning, if they see the relevance, they will pay more attention. And I want to talk about this at the very end. Competence is important, okay? So when we're teaching, and I just have a passion for what I'm teaching, so that's kind of easy to do. All right, so this, I have my attendance sheet here. So I want to take attendance first. I don't know if you folks are here or not, but Renee, are you here? Yes, you are. All right, so if you're here, you answer by giving me the first name, a name of your pet. You just give me the name of your pet, and I'll try to guess what animal it is. Okay? Yeah.
Wilson.
Okay, that's a dog. All right. Taylor?
Neva.
Cat?
Yeah.
Whoa, I am smoking. Hannah? Hannah doesn't like teaching or animals. Maria? Rachel? Ben? Herman? That's a turtle. Frog? Tarantula? Dog. All right. Leslie?
Castor.
Ooh. Cat.
Yeah.
Yes. JJ?
Nothing.
Okay, JJ is here but doesn't like animals. Esther?
Brew.
Yeah, I know you. That's a dog. Maggie?
Sophie.
Sophie? That's a dog. All right. Kelsey?
Ruby.
That's a horse. That's a dog.
But you're from.
All right. Ashley?
Addie.
Addie. All right, yeah, so, and the reason this is something I did where I started taking, you take attendance, and I started doing that for my smaller classes, and I get bored taking attendance. Chuck, Tom, Betty, right? And so I would just ask a question, and it's amazing what you learn from the answer to that question in small classes. And I have this biotech class this semester that I teach, and there's supposed to be about 20 kids in there, and something happened on the line schedule, and there's 45. So I tried this in class, and a couple weeks ago where I just had them give me the name, and I blew the entire 50 minutes going through roll. Because they would give me the name of the pet, and then they might have a story about their pet, and other people would talk. And I got done, I go, all we did was roll. What are you paying for? But you could tell they loved that class, and then you can students learn about each other by saying what they have. And so we had a tarantula in there. There were some odd pets. That's why I was hoping, Ben, you might come through with something odd, but it's all right. I just found this out as an engaging thing. I asked sort of a question like that, and it's amazing what you can sort of learn. All right, my training as a researcher, I collected data, had to figure out experimental design, statistical analysis, scientific writing, and if there's anything, scientific writing is just about as boring as it gets. It is so, but at least we write for Journal of Animal Science, and it's genetics and nutrition and reproductive physiology. It's just boring, but I learned that as a graduate student, how to write. And I kind of get that. What I like about teaching versus research is teaching, don't take this wrong, is a little more loose, okay? You can do stuff if you're teaching concepts in class, and you can write about things that's a little more loose, okay? You can't, I know why you can't do that in science. If it's published something, and if you peer reviewed that, if you put something like this bacteria strain is pretty cool. Well, you wouldn't say that. This bacteria strain was found in the sample. These little bugs can really move. Now, if you put that in a scientific publication, they're going to go, you can't do that, right? It's inference, right? You can't put that in there. So it ends up to be boring. But I found out when I started teaching, I really could be more myself. And this is a dangerous thing. I have 3 brothers. We had no sisters. We grew up in rural Indiana. I've told other people this, as a kid, it was a great life. You got up, if you had shorts on, you went fishing, right? There's no girls there. Mom didn't count as a girl, right? And so it was just kind of and that goofiness sort of carried through. My mom was a really funny person, but when you're doing science or you're teaching in front of a class, you kind of have subdued that, okay? And after a while, I just was more and more myself, and I think that just fit, at least for teaching. So it's 7 years of training on this, right? That includes a postdoc. And what was I trained as I came to K-State? My training as a teacher, I co-taught one class as a PhD student with another grad student, one small class, okay? And we did that for 2 years. And then you get here and you're teaching, I taught one class at first and then kept adding classes on there. So there's no training for this. At least I think some of you folks are trained more in this, but I was not, and a lot of our scientists aren't. But my one take-home message today is, if you kind of be yourself, and personality makes a big difference of how you teach, and that can be a wide range and very effective, just sort of go with that. and see how it works out, okay? My training as a teacher, assistant professor. I show up here, I'm teaching a class, okay? Not sure what I'm doing. I remember though, after the first class, I taught one small class. It was a pretty easy class to teach. It was applied, reproductive physiology, involved cows and things like that. And then there's T-valves, right? Never had T-valves before. I get these T-valves, and I remember being in the car, driving home on Christmas break with my wife. After our first winter here, we went back to Indiana to see the family, and I read these T-valves, and it was a boost for my existence that I hadn't had before. Because I always told myself, and my brother's the same way, you get a master's, then you're gonna go, well, I'm gonna go for a PhD. Well, they're gonna find out I'm not that smart. Then you get a PhD, and then we would say, well, I'm not gonna get a job, they'll find out. It's like they're gonna find out, right? But then this teaching stuff, it just clicked in there. And my boss here gave me more and more classes, and so that my appointment went from less research to more teaching, and it kind of fit, okay? As associate professor, when this change made, I had to go to a large classroom. Whoa, terrified, because I had a small class and we talked about stuff. It was an elective, kids were in there and they wanted to be in there. Now I have a large mandatory class and there's 150 to 170 kids and I was terrified, okay? But after that first semester of doing that, I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I could just, because I was excited for the next time to do it, of changing things, and it worked out okay. But that's a challenge with that's a required class and everybody's in, and to keep that. And then as full professor, I'm still trying to get better at this by staying up on content. You need to stay up on content, right? Especially if it's a discipline that's changing, and new techniques of teaching. Some stuff, we've had seminars, and I'll go to seminars, and some things you think this is a good idea, and I jot stuff down. Some stuff just doesn't work. It may just not be my personality, and if you try to sort of square peg in a round hole, it just doesn't work. But a lot of that stuff does, and so I will try things all the time. The good thing about being full professor, it's gonna be tough to fire me now. So I can try different stuff. If my T-valves tank, I have another semester to get that back up. They're probably not gonna fire me after one bad semester. So it's a little different if you're assistant professor, but that's sort of the good thing about doing that. Okay, so my teaching hero is this person here, and you probably have seen this before, but I like this a lot, and I have a couple points to make after this.
The Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the...
She's into it.
Anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which... Anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today,
now, this girl, she is ticked off. She wants to kill this guy. He doesn't care about anything.
The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve,
and that's good right there,
exactly the same amount of revenue.
That's good. You can stop it there. We can stop it at the drool with the chalk going. I don't know why. When I first saw that, what's the movie? All right, who's seen that movie? Who has not seen it? Oh my gosh. All right. Anyway, it's the best teach. I mean. And you could tell this is he tried, but there's no pause. It's monotone, anyone, the Great Depression. He doesn't even leave space for anybody to answer. And I guarantee you this, if there's no space to answer, you'll never have a response from the class. Because sometimes 5 seconds of silence to me seems like a long time. Like if I ask, hey, what's your favorite color? 1,000, 2,000. Oh no. The silence is killing me, and then I'll say something, right? But in a classroom, especially a large classroom, you may have to wait 8 to 10 seconds before somebody might answer, and it's not that they're that shy, they're just kind of thinking that or getting their, getting their courage up or something. So, so I love that because it's just like higher or lower, anyone. Yeah. classic. So, from your teacher in the classroom, and I hope I have some students here, this is your teacher. Is enthusiasm important? You go into a class, and for your teacher, is enthusiasm important? Would you say yes? Who would think, and it's okay if you say, who would think probably no? Enthusiasm, does it matter that much? All right. What about energy? Okay, so these are things that I don't think a lot of, I thought, what's the difference between enthusiasm and energy? I don't really know, but I think both these things are important. Okay, so I would think you probably agree on that, right? Stuff that I do that I think helps and make the classroom environment a fun place when possible. And I love music, and so when they walk into class, I have music playing, okay? I will sometimes use that to emphasize a point, and sometimes it's just background music. And the first time, and so when I taught the big classroom, I had the music cranked up. We have our classroom's not like this, ceiling's falling down, but we have good speakers. So I could crank the music up, and I remember at the end of that semester, I asked, is music before the class, it might be within that 8-10 minutes, is that good or bad? First T-val, you don't know, it's anonymous, but a girl says, it was bad, it really distracted me. I'm going, that's it, I'm not doing that again. And then I read every other of the next 100 T-vals, and it was 80% positive. So you can't please everybody, but that environment coming in there, and you get things like, we need more rock, or I don't like country music, stuff like that, and so they did have to listen to my music, but that seems like an environment that really kind of was good. So I like music. Let me see if I can do this. The other way I use this, might be a little hard to see, is that if, and students like music, and so if you do, sometimes I'll just put a song on and ask for this. Right. So do we have the artist? Beatles, right? Name of the song? Yeah, because they just said that. Very good, yeah. All right, so that's right. Now, if I'm using this song, I might say, this is a drawing that I did of a cow reproductive tract. And remember, it's reproductive physiology, so we need sperm to meet egg, okay? And for that sperm to get to the egg, it is one long and winding road. I mean, and so all the anatomy they have to learn, right, through that, there's different cell layers, there's different, it's like a set of tubes that are together, but they are of different size. And so, and it's funny to me, if you connect something like long and winding road, they may remember at least, perhaps I should study this. Because when I test people on that right there, they may have to draw that. It's not easy to grade. I have some people that help me grade those. It's not easy to grade, but if I will tell students, if you can draw that right there, and you know what the tissues are and can label that thing, what can I ask you that you don't know? And they'll go, not much. That's right. I'll say, well, yeah, this is, I'm going to my teaching mode. Just remember, these are college guys. If you can draw that, the only thing I could ask you would be two things, jack and squat. You know everything about that. But still, they'll kind of, anyway. So that's how I use music. The other one I like is, for music is, I was gonna pull that up, but I won't do that. I was worried about just going long enough. Is there a clock in here? What time is it? 10:25? What time do we start? 10, okay, we're fine, yeah. I have very little content, okay, it's fine. The other one is that in reproductive physiology, there's something called feedback. Feedback is a key term, and you could use that on a lot of things, but if they don't understand feedback, meaning there are steroid hormones coming from ovaries or testes for all mammals that feed back to the brain. It's a loop. If students, and that's not something they get very easy. They have to understand feedback. It could be a positive feedback or a negative feedback. But the, well, since we're all friends here, here's the, oh no. Oh yeah, here's the song I use if the first time I talk about feedback. Artist? song. When did he record it? When was it? Woodstock. Now, I won't go into this, but Jimi Hendrix is a really good guitar player. And later on in this song, he does something, it just, you can pick out the melody, but he will turn his guitar towards his amplifier, and you've got stuff coming out of the amplifier into his pickup on his guitar, right? And so instead of just going out to the world, this is feedback. And when he gets up there, which you just get this tremendous feedback, which sounds like just sort of crud. But for Jimi Hendrix in 1969, that was good stuff, right? And so I will play that song. It's amazing people still know that. But feedback, if they get that in their head and I can connect that, I think it helps. When I say think, it's hard to demonstrate that, right? So I love music, and humor is also good. I mean, I try different humor. You have to be willing to bomb. And here's the other thing about being full professor. It's going to be hard for them to fire me now, but you have to be willing to bomb, because my students, some of the students here that TA for me, they're just, the jokes are old and bad. I mean, I have no new material. And my kids once told me, they said, once my kids got a little bit older and they start watching stuff like Seinfeld and then Caddyshack and these other movies, my oldest daughter goes, Dad, you had no original material. Everything they would pick up was either from Seinfeld or these old movies. I go, that's actually right, Brooke, I don't. But if it's old enough, and college students don't know that now, it's still kind of useful. So I try to use that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But and then the last thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about human and surveys. It's just something I've done in class, which I hope brings. I mean, it really picks people up. If you survey your class, and some of that can be some content stuff, which I do a little bit, but more of the time it might be just about personal stuff. You will find out. I mean, my wife goes, why do you read through 150 index cards? She thinks that's a waste of time. This is good stuff. I asked 5 questions. I got to where I started collecting the numbers and over the years, and it's funny how things change. I'll show you a slide of that in a second. And but that's kind of good stuff. You can find out about your class if you ask these similar questions. And I would say this, that so I don't forget to tell you, so for animal science, we would probably say we're not that diverse, right? We've got a lot of kids from Kansas, farm kids, so our diversity is not great. But we'll have students from urban areas, Kansas City and Wichita, pre-vet students, but the majority would be more farm, rural kids. But I ask a question, your favorite band. So you got 150 students, right? Your favorite band. There will be 60 different bands named. I have no idea what these bands are, right? And so there is diversity, and it's not just, like I said, it's not just where people are from. It's amazing, their environment, what they grew up of music that I have never even heard. I usually have to ask, is this really a thing? What was some, I can't even remember some stuff. Did you just make up this genre of music? No, there'll be 4 or 5 kids go, and they're spread out, they're not together, go, no, that's a thing. And I know it's real. And once my kids now have left the house, I have nothing to connect me to college students. And if you don't know what they're doing, then it goes downhill quickly. So this kind of keeps me connected a little bit. Okay, the average attention span of college students. Man, I got distracted last night. I pulled this off because I was trying to think about, and I usually think my job is to keep them awake. Keep them awake. I mean, I can't, if they closed down the Ville last night, I can't do anything about that. But if they're in class, my job is to keep them awake. And I tell you, Mike, I had my biotech class yesterday, had those 45 students, and I usually kind of walk the room a little bit. There's a girl, other than the drool, she was just like the last person in that movie. Boom. And I'm going, man, I just did not connect with her. She's out. But I try. So this thing, they gave these students, they were in a chemistry class, and they gave them clickers, and when they got distracted, meaning when you're not listening to something, what the instructor's saying, they would hit the clicker button. You could never do this in science. I made up this data. Well, I didn't make it up, but I drew this line. Oh, here we go. Okay, I drew this line. Because, so number of click responses, because they noticed these things in the first 30 seconds, there's a spike of people being distracted. That's kind of settling in phase, okay? Then it was about 5 minutes or so, and there's another little spurt, right? And then one about 10 minutes, and as they went through this, it was pretty random, but as you got to the end of a class time, they got down to where there were 1 or 2 minutes between these distraction kind of points, okay? And I know this doesn't apply to everything, but it was sort of interesting of how this works out. So the thing they do, if you ask a question or do a demonstration in class, suddenly during that time, you have them during the demonstration, and then for a period of time, 5-10 minutes after that, which kind of makes sense, right? And so if you did this a couple different times, now you're at least decreasing these spurts of distraction, and maybe you have them for a little more length of time. This is why I get bored myself. If I was just talking for 50 minutes and not doing anything else, yeah, I probably would have quit and gone to Colorado in a ski lift to try to find myself, or whatever my college buddies did. I don't know. So, so I think this is kind of interesting. It's hard to keep everybody in tune there, but and it's very visual. But if you do a question and demonstration, and I know how that is. That's like it is for me. If I'm in a seminar and things are a little bit tired, kind of dragging down, and somebody asks an interesting question, it's a different voice you hear, you're going, hey, that's a good question. Now I'm back into it. As a student, do you like to get asked questions in class? Yes? Good. Any no's? Oh man, that completely flopped. So yeah, I don't either. If I'm a student sitting in there or at some seminar, I don't want the instructor to ask me or the presenter to ask me a question, okay? If you're an instructor, do you like to get questions? Yeah. So this is what I think, because I will choose on individual students. I know it makes them nervous. I tell them, doesn't matter, just give me a shot at your answer. And I'll talk about this in a sec, for humor, as long as you're not singling somebody out and you're not really making fun of what they say, but if they say something funny and they mean it to be funny, that is the best humor that whole class can get, because that's one of their peers. And so sometimes if it's incorrect answer, but it's funny, I will repeat that and sort of bringing people back into the fold, right? If we need a little break. So yeah, to me, as a student, I would have no on that. But as an instructor, I like questions because now I know where they are and they're a little bit engaged. And then with that question, we might go down a bit of a rabbit trail, but it's better than just Ferris Bueller's teacher. Okay. All right, so here's the stuff, for example, for class. All this stuff comes in. Students have to know new terminology, anatomy, physiology, and it's just tough to sort that out, okay? I remember, I like this example because when I had a master's in Repro Phys, I was getting my PhD, I walked into the classroom, as soon as I got out, this was out at Washington State, walked in this classroom, Phil Singer, had no idea who he was, got up to a chalkboard, and he drew a graph on the whiteboard, no slides, right? And he put on there this line, he just drew this out, and he said that's estrogen, he drew this line out, and that's progesterone. It couldn't be more simple, right? You wouldn't, if you're in a animal reproductive physiology class, you should know this. For whatever reason, with all this other stuff coming in there, this was I understood the estrous cycle more that day after seeing that thing on a chalk, might have been, I think we had whiteboards in. Yeah, it was the West Coast, they were ahead of us. Anyway, we had after he gave that, then I had my entire 2 years as being a master's student. I'm still not sure exactly why that was, but he just simplified it. He said, this progesterone stuff here, if you know these graphs, you know if an animal is receptive to mating, estrogen is going to be high. If not, progesterone controls everything else. And I know there won't be a quiz on this, but if you know this feedback, if this is negative feedback, if you know this negative feedback stuff right here, all this other stuff we're going to teach this semester, and even at a graduate level, should fall into place. And it does. And so I will still draw that on a whiteboard for classes when I'm talking about the ester cycle, because at least knowing those 2 lines is important. So working the room, I kind of walk around if I can. Depends on the lecture room. I do like doing that, and that's why I walked around. I saw the girl sleeping, but it was fine. I didn't wake her up. But just walking the room a little bit. Kind of, again, I'm trying to keep people engaged and keep them awake. So here's the other thing I do. If I have a 50-minute lecture, about 25 or 30 minutes into it, which sometimes isn't at that time, I do a mid-lecture break. This mid-lecture break, I hope, gains me people come back in. And I've asked on T-Vals about this. I said, do you like mid-lecture break? Overwhelmingly, 90% say yes. They'll say, and on the T-Val, they'll write, yeah, it got me, I was feeling tired, it got me back in. The mid-lecture break really helps. And this could be, I used to think, I've got to have it, its content's got to be relevant when I'm teaching that day, right? Yeah, then I ran out of stuff. So then if it's not relevant, I don't care. It's a break, it's a new slide, it gets them back in the fold, I think. So my mid-lecture breaks are something like, I just put these up for, because some college kids think this is me, and then, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. That's one thing. I never know if they walk into the classroom, if they're sleeping right away or they're just not into it. I mean, you don't know where they've been that week or what's going on in their life. And so on a large classroom, it's hard to figure that out. But a little break here is what we'll do. Sometimes relevant humor. Come on, that's comedy. Now, and here's the thing. In fertilization, the first sperm to the egg are not the winners. They don't get it fertilized. They have other jobs to do. Okay? This cartoon doesn't show that, but Michael Phelps, and this was right at the Olympics, that's a classic. Now, in 10 years, if I'm still, hopefully I'll be retired by then, in 10 years, will people know who Michael Phelps is? I don't know, but I'm hoping, because I'll milk this, because that's a good thing. But the biology take home is Michael Phelps, I can't remember the caption was, but Michael Phelps doesn't mean he has the most children. Yeah, this has nothing to do with, right? I mean, Michael Phelps doesn't, anyway. There's no, yeah. But the first spermatozoa to the egg aren't the ones that fertilize, because there's other jobs. Now, I love this, because we talk about estrous cycles, and I talk a little bit about dogs and cats, and there's for some reason, first of all, this is me in about 5 years. Rolled up paper, the cats and ate again. The scratching post in the cat. Come on. That's comedy. And even if they don't think it's comedy, I'll yell out, that's comedy, and it wakes them up. Okay. All right. And then there's, oh man, I hope there's some humor that's not relevant. I don't know. These are astronauts. And so Uranus is up here, I'm pretty sure, but this guy, this suit's falling down. Now that's comedy because, I don't know, it just is. So it may not be relevant, but at least it kind of wakes people up. A survey question might be this, I'll do maybe 2 or 3 times during the semester. Do you have a tattoo? I'll ask students that, and I have the data. It's from 2011 to, man, I have to update this. That was the percentage of the class, about 150 students that had a tattoo. And I would put on here, I have some other questions, and it's optional, you don't have to tell me this. But 99% of the students will say in some fashion, and I'll categorize this, no, capital letters, 3 exclamation points. Like, tattoos disgust me. In one word, I can get that feeling. Or, yeah, I have 6, and they tell me all where they are. Okay? One on my thigh, hip, I don't need to know all that, but that's what they write down on the card. And here's the deal on humor. If your jokes are lame, then just use student responses without calling them out. Like I said before, students are funny. Here's the notes we get on that particular survey, which I like. Do you have a tattoo? And they might say yes or no, and then and I showed this during Spotlight. Sorry if it's redundant, but no, mom said I would be cut out of the will. Okay. And their names are on these cards, right? So they just, no, dad won't pay for college if I get one. So, that's the kind of household they come from, a non-tattoo household. Not that my dad knows of. Yeah. No, not to the best of my knowledge. I don't understand that. I don't know, like maybe it's ways you can't see it, but use a mirror. I don't know. Unfortunately, a snowman on my butt, it didn't stay in Vegas. This is student comedy. I couldn't come up with that, right? Smiley face on butt cheek, first time drinking vodka, don't tell mom. Like I'm going to call up her mom. I don't have time for that. Yeah, your daughter. No, would you put a bumper sticker on a Ferrari? That's comedy. That is comedy. And somebody that's maybe a little vain, I don't know. All right, from your teacher in the classroom, is enthusiasm important? I asked you that before. Is it essential? And I'll ask you this down here. Is energy essential? Because I don't think it is, but it's really helpful. If you don't have a passion, you have to have a passion about what you're teaching about. I'm literally still amazed that, an unfertilized egg, you can actually see that in a Petri dish if you have light underneath and you know what it is. It's a tiny white dot. You cannot see spermatozoa, okay? There's no way. But from that one cell plus another cell, boom, you're sitting there. It's still cool to me. And so that, I don't have to fake that, it comes across kind of thing. But my personality is a little quirky, and I know not everybody does this, but I have heard people talk. There was a guy I heard talk, and he was interesting. He had overheads he put on there with overhead on an overhead projector. I was with the guy for an hour because he was interesting and he had a knack to do that. I don't know what it was, but you don't have to jump around and do that. You know what you're good at, and if you are real and sometimes just vulnerable, like you make mistakes, which I make mistakes all the time, I think that really helps. Don, we talked about that too. If you come in and it's just polished, you come in and it's boom, 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 any questions and leave. I mean, it's just not as human, and you're not connecting with that. And so I've learned this over the years. And again, they can't fire me, so I'm less likely to. I'm more likely to try things. So I'm not sure it's essential. You do have to have passion about what you're teaching and kind of have application to what you're teaching. But there's all tons of ways to do that. And if you're interesting, yeah, there's just people like that. I heard science talks where I'm thinking, man, the guy's just good, right? He just kept me there. It's complicated science, but it's just good. It's how you plan that out, and that just takes some practice. So is there a difference between constructive and engaged instructor compared to just being entertaining? What would the difference be? Because I got to tell you, from years ago, when I would take over some other classes, you would hear this, I mean, not to your face, but they would say, well, and this would come from people that don't get good T-vals would say, it's just a popularity thing, all right? And whoever, they're just entertaining students. That really kind of, I thought about that, it kind of bugged me for a while. It's not really that, to me, here's the answer to that question. Have your students learned content at the end of the semester? And for a fact, I know if I can give them, I used to try to, in a reproductive physiology course, you could have them learn 30 hormones and all these different tissues. My deal, you know, that estrous cycle thing, my goal now is to have, if you're a C or D student and you can get the basics, you should pass the class, right? And so that's why I try, but if they know content, basic things like feedback and how this works at the end of the semester, then I think I've done the job, right? If you're just entertaining, and there are professors like that, I'll ask students, advisees going across campus, was the class good? Yeah, well, I mean, he was funny. I didn't learn very much. I mean, it's good for a while, but if you don't give content over a whole semester, college kids are not, yeah, they know, right? They're not getting content. So, and the other thing I think is your students, how to think in this constructive thought process and problem solving deal. I don't know if this is true. You teaching professionals can tell me, but I know if somebody says, well, I'm not good at math, right? And I teach biotech and some lab math. I'm not good at math either, but I've done this 100 to 1,000 times. I know how to do it. My neurons can connect to help me do that. And I know when I was in graduate school, undergrad, master's, PhD, there's some stuff, I will never get this. And you do get it by working at it. And I think, I think neurons connect, and it's more experience than it is just general intelligence. There are mutants. I call students in class mutants. If you're a mutant, meaning I could throw up that slide and all that stuff on there, got it. Okay, you're a mutant, that's fine. You mutant help the non-mutants like me, okay? Because the other thing you have to do in my class is you have all that information, but you better be able to apply that to an applied question. Right? You know some facts now, but if you can't kind of apply that, and I think this is, there's a lot of pre-veterinary students that we have come through, and I mean, they are smoking smart, but I'm not sure they're going to be a great veterinarian as a pre-vet student because they get to these applied questions and they go, you didn't talk about this. Yeah, I know I didn't talk about it, but you have all the material. And so I think that's important. And I will tell them, if you never do this again, this lab math or reproductive physiology, but figure out how you learn stuff. It'll help in everything you do in life. Every class you figure out how you learn this stuff, okay? All right, shoot, what time is it?
48.
48, okay. Review for exam session, I just want to do this quick if I can because it's, I have very few original ideas, and I had this. If you do an exam session, did you guys ever have exam session? What happens during the exam session? Some kids show up. You go, okay, you have any questions for me? There'll be 3 people in the front row. First one will be, yeah, what kind of questions do you ask? How many questions are on the exam? And so I couldn't do that. So I show up, and we have a review session, okay? And if you ask questions and you offer candy, again, there's a few people in there that raise their hand every time. Okay, so you have to physically and mentally answer questions, okay? Just catch a ball. Actually, you just have to have one more. I will pick these up later. I do need them back. Oh, who broke this? Ben. All right, you guys. All right, so, and so for review sessions, and I think this is good, I say you have to be, there's some mental involved and physical involved. I'll put a question up here, and this is really relevant to what I'll ask in the exam, right? I mean, it's relevant stuff. If they show up, it's gonna help them. If you know the answer, you throw the ball. The first one that hits me with the ball gets to answer the question. Otherwise, it's just raising hands, and I can't sort that out. And then, and the funny thing is, which, especially if it's a dude or something in the front row and he's really into it and he wants to hit me here and he's going, did I know that? And there's, I mean, I could stand there all day and they're never going to hit me, right? So, and plus I keep moving. All right, here's your question. Oh, this is a little animation thing that's kind of lame. Name one of the songs I played before class today. Don, I'm going to give you that because that was not a great throw. Yes. So his team now has a point. And this is for brand name candy. There's always brand name candy because it's not just knowledge. They're not going to. Am I a veterinarian?
No.
That's correct. What is the first spike of distractions? When does that first spike occur? Oh, did I tell you this? When's that first spike occur?
Within the first 30 seconds.
Yes. First 30 seconds. They're settling in. Yeah. What was the highest percentage of students that had a tattoo in my class?
That was close.
Close enough.
25.
Yes, 25. Who was K-Tate's football coach in 1992 when I got here? Oh, come on, people.
It's the guy that's the legend.
And you forgot his name. It's the guy that's the legend. What's that?
He said he lost his point.
Yeah, that's right. It's my. Yes, Amber. Yes, right, Bill Snyder. The guy that's the legend. See, now that's technically a correct answer. But I would say, what's your name? Slama. I would say if you put that on the test, that's an average C answer. Because it's general, but it's not. Okay, yeah, very good. What's your favorite color? You can't lose. Okay, oh, sorry, Renee. Well, she hit me first. Yellow?
Yeah.
Is that really true?
Yeah.
Okay, that's correct. Yeah, how am I gonna? Who retired as director of the Teaching and Learning Center last year? Oh, who hit me right here? Yes. Who? What happened? Yeah, who said that?
That's a C.
That's C. No, that's an A answer. That's a good answer. A C answer. All right. Who's teaching the class? Yeah, that's an A answer because that's funny. And yeah, she is a legend. Yeah, I love Jan. I love Jan. Did you take the elevator or walk up the stairs to get to this room?
I took the stairs for 2 floors and then I took the elevator.
Good enough. Because I took the stairs yesterday checking out the room. Come on. But today I took the elevator. Okay. Does the first sperm that gets to the egg win? No. See, he paid attention. Correct. What was the name of that sperm on there? Whose sperm was that? Michael Phelps. Yeah, yeah. And let me tell you, a little tip to the game. If you throw all your ammo at the beginning, and a lot of people just want to hit me, and so if I've already been hit and other people are hitting me, then it's just mean. Because they're not going to be able to answer, they're just hitting me. How do you spell my last name? You can't answer. There you go. Yes, Renee? That's correct. I before E except after C, but I've known her a long time, so she did it. All right, creating takes time and effort. This is Jerry Seinfeld. Love Jerry Seinfeld. He wrote down every joke he did from 1976 to present. Every joke. And he would write down, did it work or not? We started in comedy clubs in New York. Did it work or not? Those are all laid out here, all these yellow sheets, right? It takes work to be creative and time, but it's worth it. Disadvantage of being a good teacher. I don't know if we can read this. This says it all in this Calvin cartoon. He gets a question, Pillar of Land, Pillar of Rock. He writes down 1620. I think that's correct. As you can see, I've memorized this utterly useless fact long enough to pass the test question. I now intend to forget it forever. You've taught me nothing except how to cynically manipulate the system. Congratulations. And then they say the satisfaction of teaching makes up for lousy pay. Comedy. If you're a good teacher, if in the university system, I'm just going to be blunt here, you probably won't get paid as much as a good researcher. That's just the system. But when I get home at night as research, I just wasn't good at it, and I had to do scientific writing. And so when I get home at night, if I have a good lecture and there's feedback immediately, it's a pretty good deal. Okay. All right. Oh, anybody here have to defend a thesis soon? Man, this is not going to go over. A good thesis defense is a good thesis offense. Look at her. Look at these guys. No, that's comedy. All right. Do we get done in time?
Yes.
Okay. Was there supposed to be time for questions? Probably. Yeah. All right. Yes.
So you said about entertainment and education. So I would argue that a good teacher, I guess this isn't a question, more as a comment, and then to ask for your feedback. I would argue that even if they're entertaining, do you think students would eventually drop off and be like, this isn't worth it because it's just funny and I'm not learning anything? Or would they continue to attend just for the sake of the entertainment?
Yeah, good question. So if like they get to a class and they think, well, it's entertaining,
But I'm not learning anything.
but I'm not learning anything, I don't think they'll go after a while, especially if all of the content, if it's entertaining, but if all the content's up there or it's in a book and they're getting no new content for attending that class, that will not draw them in to keep coming. Yeah, because even in my class, I mean, I work to make attendance, and if you come to my class, if I'm drawing stuff, it will help you in exams. But what was our average attendance, Ashley? 80? Yeah, So 80%. And so I feel like I'm working at that hard to make them, if you come to class, you can get notes, but you're not, because I draw stuff, you're not going to quite get it. So does that make, I think if the content, if
Just
they're
a
not getting much
curiosity
out,
question.
yeah. And if they know, if they can get an A or B by figuring out the first quiz or exam and they look at the points, I don't really have to go to class. Even if it's really entertaining, I think they drop off. I actually hope they kind of would. Because otherwise, why? Yeah. I'll never give all the text up there because some of the mutants can read through that and everything, but there's some nuance to learning that where this is why we're still here and there's still a verbal teaching versus just all digital, I think, I hope. Yeah, thank you, good question. Yes, sir.
So that you can hear me. With respect to, I got it. Oh, okay. With respect to the surveys where you can ask them the personal stuff, you presented it, or one of the times you mentioned it was after you talked about giving them a mid-break. So my two questions are, one, is that when you do it? And two, is it when do you talk about the answers of it?
Right, yeah. So what I will do is if I have a survey like that, like the tattoo survey, which I'll do now, that will be a mid-lecture break. Actually, I just hand out cards, so they don't do it, so they'll just hand out cards. So I will, at the end of class, I will put up those questions, some of those that might be relevant and might be just a tattoo question. I'll hand them out in class, they'll fill out the cards, they put them on the front desk as they leave. When I get those correlate, I use that as a mid-lecture break on those surveys. Like I might do 3 during the semester, and if it's a 5-question survey, I can get 2 or 3 mid-lecture breaks out of those questions. So that's where, as soon as it goes up there, and they're going, oh yeah, I remember he asked about this tattoo stuff. I think they're with me on that. So I use those as a mid-lecture break on like that graph thing. I'll put that up 3-4 times a semester, because that one works. If it's stuff that and they're interested in what other people answer, and I'll put the funny questions up. Yeah, those are really good mid-lecture breaks. So they may not be relevant to the content that particular day. Blue. Okay, good. I don't know, Tucker, if that's what you wanted, but that's everything I know I just talked about. That's all I know. So, yeah.